So you've been cancelled. Great. We all know about cancel culture. And at the same time, I would sort of argue that, it really hasn't gotten that much better at all. I mean, Harvard is still the worst place for free speech, having a negative score out of 0 from FIRE. Like, you can look this up, I forgot what FIRE stood for, but basically FIRE took a bunch of surveys from the school's students as well as the faculty, and looking at the events and how the school responded to shutting down speaker events and such. And so they score schools based off of that. And so Harvard got a negative score, which is how? It's at a 0. How? But cancel culture is still here, and I'm thinking about it now, and I'm wondering if it might be here to stay. And if it does, then well, fuck me. But anyway, what do you do if you're canceled or in the process of getting canceled? Now this can be with friends, with with communities, maybe even family, which is really that is really tough. That's really tough. And so the first thing I'll tell you is never try to placate the mob. Never apologize for it. Because 1, you can't, and 2, it only makes things worse. By apologizing, you are admitting that you are wrong, and that's not a bad thing, right? But in this scenario, when you're being mobbed, apologizing to the mob rather reinforces the fact that you did something wrong, and then the mob comes after you even stronger. So you don't want to do that, because it will only send you faster to your doom. The second is to know your rights. If you're in a university club or community, know your rights. Know what clubs can or cannot do to you. Know what the university protects in terms of your rights. For me, around a year ago, I got canceled from two of the clubs I was in at that time. And so I won't go into detail about it, but you need to know if the clubs can actually kick you out or not for your different opinions, for what you say. Because most of the time they can't. Most of the time they will make it appear like you must leave, but they can't make you leave. So stand by your rights. On the other hand, when a community wants you to leave, and when you feel like everyone in that community wants you to leave, but they can't force you to leave, you get this feeling that you're not wanted in the community, and so you just decide to leave anyway, because there's no point in staying in a community where you're not wanted, right? It's what's the point in being in a community where nobody wants me, right? That's not a community. That's just a community plus one stranger now. So it is up to you to choose to stand by your rights, to know your rights, that this club cannot kick you out unless it can. It's your decision to stay in that club or to leave. And in the end, as I've already said, it really doesn't matter if you choose to leave or stay, because you'll basically always be walking on eggshells afterward. Sure, you can rejoin, but you're most likely going to be extremely off-put from being with the other party in that community again. And I'm sure people on that side also feel the same way about you, right? I'm sure they don't want to interact with me, just like you don't want to interact with them. But as an egotistical argument, at least the fundamental difference between them and I is I don't cancel people. But that is besides the point. So, the thing is with cancellations in these clubs, in these communities, I would say most of the time, the majority of people don't actually know anything about it. Rather, there is a minority in that group that tells you that there's a majority that disagrees with you. But in reality, it's really just a minority. And so, a lot of people in that club will, they'll wonder, why did you leave? For what reason did you leave? Because they didn't know. But you're made to think that the entire club already knows. And that is where they get you. Because they probably don't. Right? Now, if you've already made your decision to quit, to leave, you could rejoin, or you could stick to your word and to leave permanently. So what do you do if people ask? Personally, I have mixed opinions on this because, for one, I want to keep it a secret, because you start to think, what if I did make a terrible mistake, and that's why I'm being kicked out, right? And then these other people find out, and then me leaving or me getting kicked out is justified. That would hurt even more. And so you want to keep this a secret. And at the same time, you have this righteous fire in you that tells you, no, people should know the truth, that this was unfair to me, that I was done wrongly. It's the battle between these two perspectives, keeping a secret or telling the truth, right? Now, it is your choice to do either. But there are consequences to both. And so the first is your soul will hurt, because you will need to lie to other people about why you left, basically. Either a lie out of omission or a straight up blatant lie. And that will hurt your soul. Secondly, immediately following you getting kicked out or you leaving is that you'll face social isolation. And as a social species, we as humans really just abhor social isolation. Hence why it is the worst punishment in prison. And so keeping it a secret will hurt your soul, but telling other people may lead to greater social isolation. So, what is it that you would rather want to take? For me personally, I originally thought that, I can handle just not telling the truth all the time. But I can't. I can't, because that's not the person I want to be. And two, it's a painful kind of hurt. It's a hurt that hurts your character, hurts your belief in yourself. And so currently, I'd rather take social isolation and ostracization over hurting my soul, because, well, I've been through it before. And ironically, isn't this what the Me Too movement was originally about? Wasn't it about giving people a voice rather than canceling them, rather than ending their careers, right? And it's funny, right? After the Me Too movement, there was cancellation. I mean, you can clearly see what was the dominant culture in one year, and then subsequently the counterculture afterwards. Now, if you haven't been canceled, good on you. In this last segment, I will talk about how to prevent being canceled. Well, the only way to be 100% uncancelable is to never open your mouth and never speak your mind. That is the only way to never be cancelable. To keep your mouth shut for an eternity. Now, can you do that? Sir, that's seriously doubtful. But otherwise, you can't truly prevent yourself from being you. You can't always have a fake face on. And so you can't really prevent yourself from being canceled. But what you can do is influence the next generation. What you can do is you can highlight the importance of free speech to your children, so that in their time, hopefully, in their time, they won't face this issue anymore. That is, if this is still a problem like decades later, which it could be. Hopefully not, though. Hopefully not. Otherwise, honestly, man, can you really prevent being canceled? Well, if you want to speak your mind, if you want to be honest, if you want to live in accordance with yourself, I say no. No, you can't. Because by being politically correct all the time, it means that you can't be honest with yourself. You always have to have a front on. You always have to have a different face on. You always have to be a different person. And that's untenable for an entire human life. So no, you can't 100% prevent cancellation, at least in this current culture. But what you can do is you can influence the later generations. You can teach them what we have forgotten so that they don't suffer the way we have.